Hi folks, and welcome to Attega Armory. Today we're going to be removing this underfolding stock on the M70AB2 and replacing it with a telescoping M4 style stock. Alright, so here's a quick look at the tools that we're going to be using. A pair of needle nose pliers, a screwdriver that will match to your pistol grip so you can get your pistol grip off, and then a 3/8 inch crescent wrench, a 3/32 punch. The kit includes a 1/8 inch hex head, and I've also got the 1/8 inch bit for my torque wrench. We've got the castle nut wrench, and then of course a torque wrench. So they didn't provide a torque spec or really any instructions with this kit, so I just based an assumption of about 50 inch-pounds, just simply based on the size and composition of the threads and the screws. Now before you get started, make sure that your rifle is unloaded and all the ammunition is cleared out of the work area. Then go ahead and field strip your rifle. Take this pistol grip off. So the first pin that we're going to need to get rid of is this one right here. And in order to get it out of there, we got to flip it over. You'll be able to see the pin right here through this hole. You're going to want to watch out for this guy. Kind of comes flying out of there. Make sure you don't lose it. And from there you can just pull out your little spring. So once we get that first pin out, you should be able to just pull this locking mechanism outward slightly and reveal the pin, which is right here. And that, actually, if you push it from the bottom, should come out pretty easily. At least it does on this one. There it is. All right, next we need to loosen this lock ring by turning it counterclockwise. So this one's was a little tight, so what I did is I just very gently kind of put my punch in one of these holes and just kind of tap, 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 get it moving, and then did the same thing here until that kind of loosened up a little bit to where I can hand turn that and get it loose. So what you want to do is continue to loosen that while you're pulling on your sling attachment right there until it actually exposes this little pin right here. And that's going to be our third pin that we're going to remove. And this one doesn't really take a whole lot of beating on, just kind of pops right out. There. Now we can continue to take this whole thing apart from here. And that's it, folks. This is a good opportunity to get in there and clean this all out nicely and get everything lubed up and ready to go for assembly. We're going to use a little bit of our Attega Armory CLP, and we're going to nuke that Cosmoline. Pretty yucky stuff. So I like to put a little bit of grease on the mating surface here because we've got steel on steel, and I just don't want any moisture to get in there and cause rust between those two surfaces. So go ahead and put your stock adapter on and line your holes up best you can. And then we're going to start by sort of loosely threading in the two screws on the rear. And don't torque it down quite yet. Want to keep it loose. Go ahead and do the other side. Now that you got both sides done on the back, go ahead and do the same thing on the front. And go ahead and do the other side as well.
Now that I've got all 4 of those in there, I'm going to set my torque wrench to about 50 inch-pounds. Again, the manufacturer didn't provide any instructions or any torque specifications on these, so I'm just kind of guesstimating based on the size of these screws, as well as the fact that it's just steel on steel. We're not threading into aluminum or anything, so we can wrench these down pretty good. Don't do it all at once, just kind of work your way around gradually before you really lay into the torque wrench. So I'm just going to kind of let these all seat nicely so that it's as even as possible. There we go. So there's one. So again, we're just going to use a little bit of our Adiga CLP and kind of clean some of this excess grease away. This stuff works really well on breaking up grease and making it really easy to remove. We're going to go ahead and install the buffer tube and stock assembly. Now, I have removed the buffer and the spring. However, I am going to retain the lock plate and the castle nut. It looks like that's about as far as it's going to go. I don't want to force it in any farther, so I'm just going to back it out and then tighten up my castle nut. And from there, we're going to install our buttstock. And that is it, my friends. We're going to go ahead and reassemble this and see how it looks. All right, so here's our finished product. It's looking real solid. A little bit of a concern here about this gap. I mean, the connection is really pretty stout, so I'm not overly concerned about it, but it would be nice if they included some shims for the variance in size on some of these firearms. So, you know, there's probably about 1/8 of an inch or so in between right there. It would be nice if it could sit flush. But other than that, it went on pretty easy and looks pretty good. We did not install the extra pins here. You'd have to drill in order to do that, but I feel more than confident in just the included screws that came with it. So there you have it. Now, in a previous clip, I mentioned that I wasn't overly concerned about this gap that is between the adapter and the receiver. Now, after shooting a couple of 100 rounds through this, I realized that I am dead wrong about not being concerned about that. Almost immediately from the recoil, it started to kind of loosen this connection here, and the whole thing kind of just started to jimmy back and forth. I'll show you what I did. I actually ended up taking the buffer tube off and grinding off just a little bit so that I could get another full turn in and actually have that buffer tube touching firmly against the back of the receiver. So I'll take this apart real quick and I'll show you guys what it looks like. Alright, so here's our buffer tube removed, and you can see here how I kind of slightly shaved down this portion here on the upper half. That's because this particular buffer tube had a bit of a protrusion here. It was it kind of just stuck out a little bit. That was preventing me from making another full turn and being able to kind of lock it into place here. So what I did is I just kind of carefully, very slowly, little by little, took that down on the bench grinder until I was able to make a good solid solid final turn and kind of just have that seat nice and perfect. And once it did that, then all of that energy was going from the receiver straight into the buffer tube. So that fared much better than trying to rely on simply the adapter to absorb all of that shock. So once that was done and everything was put in place, it performed very well. I'm really happy with this adapter so far. It seems to be holding up well. It's nicely machined, it's well made. And that said, I have no affiliation with either Definitive Arms or Copper Custom. Thanks for visiting Attigo Armory, and have a great day.